Annotating chapters 19 and 20, I believe. We're very far in. I don't know how many pages I have to edit today. Edit? Yeah. It's been a day. Part 3. The enemy. I think I said last stream. Okay, we're gonna test the audio out in a minute. Hang on. Okay. I didn't change my description properly. Oh my goodness. I'm very tired, guys. It's almost 11 o'clock. 11 p.m. at night, almost midnight, basically. Whoa. Okay. What I was trying to do was count how many pages I actually have to annotate today. And before anyone asks, yes, I'm using a pencil again. What's it to you? I'm using a pencil. Maybe I forgot to buy a highlighter. No, I actually was out of the house today to buy a highlighter, and then I proceeded to not do that. Okay. Okay, now the description is fixed. And life is good again. I'm so tired. This is gonna be a struggle to get through. Okay. Quick math. Everyone tell me, what is 357 take 321? I think it's 36. Yeah. We've got 36 pages to get through today. Let's start reading. Let's start going through. Oh, it knocked me camera. Okay. Chapter 19. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, I immediately messed up how I was saying that. Ladies and gentlemen, let the 75th Hunger Games begin, which is the last time they would ever hear those words said. The voice of Claudius Templesmith, the Hunger Games announcer, hammers my ears. We've just witnessed Cinna die. Katniss is at her breaking point, basically, but she has to go straight into survival mode. I have less than a minute to get my bearings, then the gong will sound and the tributes will be free to move off their middle plates. But move where? I can't think straight. This image of Cinna, beaten and bloody, consumes me. Where is he now? What are they doing to him? Torturing him? Killing him? Turning him into an Avox? Obviously his assault was staged to unhinge me, the same way Darius's presence in my quarters was. And it has unhinged me. All they want to do is collapse on my metal plate. That's her, dad. That's one of her father figures, and you've killed him. You know, one thing that isn't included in this book that I can't, at least I don't think of, unless it's kind of represented by Gale, is the idea of someone you thought you lost to the war, but they reappear because they were a prisoner of war. They didn't. They managed to survive the duration of the war, and you thought they were dead because there was no evidence of them. Like you think that they've been held captive, killed, tortured for information. Um, but then at the end of the war, you come across them realizing that they're alive. I feel like Cinna possibly could have been a good representation of that. I guess Gale kind of was a little bit of that representation. Um, because I guess he was captured and then immediately the rebels won. You know, so he wasn't really tortured like that. So I guess maybe Gale represents that whole idea. All I want to do is collapse on my metal plate, but I can hardly do that after what I just witnessed. I must be strong. I owe it to Cinna, who risked everything by undermining President Snow and turning my bridal silk into Mockingjay plumage. And I owe it to the rebels who, emboldened by Cinna's example, might be fighting to bring down the capital at this moment. My refusal to play the game on the capital's terms is to be my last act of rebellion, so I grit my teeth and will myself to be a player. Come on, Katniss, you can do this. Alright, where are you? I can still make no sense of my surroundings. Where are you? I demand an answer for myself, and slowly the world comes into focus. Blue water, pink sky, white hot sun beating down. Right. There's a cornucopia, the shining gold metal horn about 40 meters away. At first it appears to be sitting on a circular island, but on closer examination, I see the thin strips of land radiating from the circle like the spokes on a wheel. I think there are 10 to 12, and they seem to be equidistant from one another. Between the spokes, all is water and a pair of tributes. So I'm inclined to highlight slash color in this part because there's a description of the cornucopia and like the arena itself. I kind of want to highlight it for emphasis about what the design of this specific arena is. And just in each of the novels, I don't know if I did it in the first novel, but I guess when I go back through it, I'll see and I'll like add to it, you know. All right, that's it then. There are 12 sparks, each with two tributes balanced on metal plates between them. The other tribute in my watery wedge is Old Wolf from District 8. He's about as far to my right as the land strip on my left. Beyond the water, wherever you look, a narrow beach and then dense greenery. I scan the circle of tributes looking for Peter, but he must be blocked from my view by the cornucopia. That's called the jungle dense greenery. I catch a handful. I catch a handful of water as it washes in and smell it. Then I touch the tip of my wet finger to my tongue as I suspected it's salt water, just like the waves Peter and I encountered on our brief tour of the beach in District 4. But at least it seems clean. Hang on a minute. I feel like this almost implies District 4 doesn't have clean water. Because we didn't really get much of a description of District 4. I'm just writing down, does this mean District 4 doesn't have clean oceans? That's interesting. But at least it seems clean. Maybe that's just her wishful thinking. But it is directly after a description of District 4. So maybe District 4 has polluted waters. There are no boats, no ropes, not even a bit of driftwood to cling to. No, there's only one way to get to the cornucopia. When the gong sounds, I don't even hesitate before I dive to my left. I feel like this is another, like, a bit of comparison of, like, from, like, what she's experienced from District 4, this is what she could be expecting from, like, an ocean. When she doesn't really experience stuff like that, you know? Since she has only ever experienced, a hello. I just realized someone's in the comment section. Hello, welcome to the stream. We're doing chapters 19 and 20 of Catching Fire. We're just at the beginning of entering the arena. What was I saying? Candace doesn't have a lot of experience with water aside from the lakes, so I imagine this picture she's getting, like no boats, no ropes, not even a bit of driftwood to cling to, is coming from her experience with District 4, which it provides us a much better image if we like make that assumption, a much better image of what District 4 looks like. Okay, moving on. When the gong sounds, I don't even hesitate before I dive to my left. It's a longer distance than I'm used to, and navigating the waves takes a little more skill than swimming across my quiet lake at home. But my body seems oddly light, and I cut through the water effortlessly. Maybe it's the salt. I pull myself dripping onto the land strip and sprint to the sandy stretch for the cornucopia. I see no one else converging from my side, although the golden horn blocks a good portion of my view. I don't let the thought of adversary slow me down, though. I'm thinking like a career now, and the first thing I want is to get my hands on a weapon. Last year, the supplies were spread out quite a distance from around the cornucopia, but with the most valuable closest to the horn. But this year, the way she describes this is so funny. But this year, the booty seems to be piled at the 7-meter high map. My eyes instantly home in on a golden bow just in arm's reach, and I yank it free. Highlighting this for emphasis. Okay. I need not highlight so much. Oh well. There's someone behind me. I'm alerted by, I don't know, a soft shift of sand. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's how she identifies Finnick. Or maybe just change in the air currents. That's insane. Insane. I pull an arrow from the sheath that's still wedged in the pilot and arm my bow as I turn. Crazy she can identify someone from a slight shift. Everyone in the stream now should definitely like my stream. And if you haven't, subscribe. And comment what your favorite moment in Catching Fire is. Finnick, glistening and gorgeous, stands a few meters away with a trident poised to attack. A net dangles from his other hand. He's smiling a little, but the muscles in his upper body are rigid in anticipation. You can swim too, he says. Where did you learn that? In District 12. We have a big bathtub, I answer. Sly, Katniss, sly. I just write sly into notes. You must, he says. You like the arena? Not particularly, but you should. They must have built it especially for you, I say, with an edge of bitterness. Even Katniss speculates that it's rigged in Finnick's favor. Seems like it anyway with all the water, when I bet only a handful of the victors can swim. And there was no pool in the training center, no chance to learn. Either you came in here a swimmer or you'd better be a really fast learner. Even participation in the initial bloodbath depends on being able to cover 20 meters of water. That gives District 4 an enormous advantage. Candace is always speculating that something might be rigged in someone else's favor, which is really, she's very perceptive. Hello? Someone else? I got here at the good part, yes, we're just meeting Finnick in the arena. For a moment we're frozen, sizing each other up, our weapons, our skill. Then Finnick suddenly grins. Lucky thing we're allies, right? Sensing a trap. I'm about to let my arrow fly, hoping it finds his heart before the trident impales me. When he shifts his hand and something on his wrist catches the sunlight. A solid gold bangle patterned with flames, the same one I remember on Hamish's wrist the morning I began training. I briefly consider that Finnick could have stolen it to trick me, but somehow I know this isn't the case. Katniss trusted yous, Everdeen. Hamish gave it to him as a signal to me, in order, really, to trust Finnick. Am I going to highlight all of this / color it in? Yes. Yes, I am. I can hear the footsteps approaching. I must decide at once. Right, I snap, because even though Hamish is my mentor and trying to keep me alive, this angers me. Why didn't he tell me he'd made this arrangement before? Probably because Peter and I had ruled out allies. Now Hamish has chosen one on his own. Ugh, Hamish. Duck, Finnick commands in such a powerful voice, so different from his usual seductive purr that I do. His trident goes whizzing over my head, and there's a sickening sound of impact as it finds its target. The man from District 5, the drunk who threw up on the sword fighting floor, sinks to his knees as Finnick frees the trident from his chest. Don't trust 1 and 2, Finnick says. There's no time to question this. I work the sheath of arrows free. Each take one side, I say, no. I dart around the pile. About 4 strokes apart, Anabaria and Gloss are just reaching land. Either they're slow swimmers or they thought the water might be less with other dangers, which it might well be. Sometimes it's not good to consider too many scenarios, but now that they're on the sand, then they'll be here in a matter of seconds. Anything useful I hear finish out? I quickly scan the pile on my side and find maces, swords, bows, and arrows, tridents, knives, spears, axes, metallic objects I have no name for, and nothing else. Weapons, I call back. Nothing but weapons. Same here, he confirms. Grab what you want and let's go. Shoot an arrow at Anabaria, who's gotten too close for comfort, but she's expecting it and dives back into the water before it can find its mark. Gloss isn't quite as swift, and I sink an arrow into his calf, as I always think Gloss is the sister, not the brother. Cashmere is the sister. Gloss isn't quite as swift, and I sink an arrow into his calf as he plunges into the waves. Sling an arrow, an extra bow, and a second sheet of arrows over my body. Sling 2 long knives and an awl into my belt, and meet up with Finnick at the front of the pile. Do something about that, would you? He says. I see Brutus barreling towards us. His belt is undone, and he is stretched between his hands as a, and he has it stretched between his hands as a kind of shield. I shoot at him, and he manages to block the arrow with his belt before it can skewer his liver, where it punctures the belt. A purple liquid spews forth, coating his face as I reload. Brutus flattens on the ground and rolls a meter into the water and submerges. There's a cloud of metal falling behind me. Let's clear up, I say to Finnick. They're pulling out like crazy moves, these people. Where did they learn this? Like, do they have like a legit designated school, or is that just speculation, do you think? Because that like is legit insane. I spelled insane wrong, of course I did. If you're watching now, you should definitely like the video and comment your thoughts. What are your thoughts on Finnick, obviously? What is your favorite scene in Catching Fire? What is your favorite Finnick scene in the entire series? This last altercation has given Anabaria and Gloss time to reach the cornucopia. Brutus is within shooting distance, and somewhere, certainly, Cashmere is nearby too. Was Brutus not just the one who decided to fall back into the water? These 4 classic careers will no doubt have a prior alliance. If I had only my own safety to consider, I might be willing to take them on with Finnick by my side. But it's Peter I'm thinking about. I spot him now, still stranded on his metal plate because the man, the boy, he can't swim. I take off and Finnick follows without question, as if knowing this will be my next move. When I'm as close as I can get, I start removing knives from my belt, preparing to swim out to reach him and somehow bring him in. Finnick drops her hand on my shoulder. I'll get him. Suspicion flickers up inside me. Could this all be a ruse for Finnick to win my trust and then swim out and drown Peter? I can, I insist. Trust issues, Aberdeen. But Finnick has dropped all his weapons to the ground. Better not exert yourself. Not in your condition, he says, and reaches down and pats my abdomen. All right, I'm supposed to be pregnant. I think. While I'm trying to think what that means and how I should act to maybe throw up. Finnick has positioned himself at the edge of the water. She's too young. She's too young to know how to act when she's pregnant. Cover me, he says. He disappears with a flawless dive. I'm just gonna write down like Finnick. I'm needing to remind her she's pregnant. I raise my bow, warding off any attackers from the cornucopia, but no one seems interested in pursuing us. Sure enough, Gloss, Cashmere, and Barry and Bruce have gathered their pack forms already, picking over the weapons. A quick survey of the rest of the area shows that most of the tributes are still trapped on their plates. Wait, no, there's someone standing on the spot to my left, the one opposite Peter. It's Mags. But she neither heads for the cornucopia nor tries to flee. Instead, she splashes into the water and starts paddling towards me. Her grey head bobbing above the waves. Well, she's old, but I guess after 80 years of living in District 4, she can keep afloat. Finnick has reached. I always imagine it in the funniest way, like not Finnick, Mags bobbing around in the water. She's just having the most fun, you know. She's just living her life. Finnick has reached Peter now and is towing him back, one arm across his chest while the other propels him through the water with easy strokes. Peter rides along without resisting. So is he not even trying to paddle? Like no doggy paddle or anything? Finnick doesn't show him how to do that? Because that's kind of a like swimming 101 that you have to give someone. I don't know what Finnick said or did that convinced him to put his life in his hands, showed him the bangle maybe, or just the sight of me waiting might have been enough. When they reach the sand, I help pull Peter up onto dry land. Hello again, he says and gives me a kiss. We've got allies. Yes, just as Hamish intended, I answer. I know there's irritation behind her voice. Remind me, did we make deals with anyone else? Peter asks. Only Mags, I think, I say. I nod towards the old woman doggedly making her way towards us. Well, I can't leave Max behind, says Finnick. She's one of the few people who actually likes me. Highlighting that for emphasis. Mother and son. drawn a heart in like so long. That was the worst thing I've ever drawn. That's a bit better. I've got no problem with Mag's essay, especially now that I see the arena. Her fish hooks are probably our best chance of getting a meal. Candace wanted her on the first day, says Peter. Candace has remarkably good judgment. No, she doesn't, says Finnick. With one hand, he reaches into the water and scoops out Mags like she weighs no more than a puppy. She makes some remark that I think includes the word Bob, then pats her belt. Look, she's right. Someone figured it out. Finnick points to Beatty. He's flailing around in the waves, but managing to keep his head above water. I can't imagine it, like, in my head right now are like all the old people bobbing around in the water, barely trying to keep their heads afloat, you know? That's what I'm imagining. What I say? The belts. They're flotation devices, says Finnick. I mean, you have to propel yourself, but they'll keep you from drowning. I almost asked Finnick to wait to get Beatty and Wirus and take them with us, but Beatty's three spokes over and I can't even see Wirus. For all I know, Finnick would kill them as quickly as he did the tribute from 5, so instead I suggest we move on. I hand Peter a bow, a sheath of arrows, and a knife. What is he going to do with the bow and arrows? Come on now. Keeping the rest for myself, but Max tugs on my sleeve and babbles on until I've given the all to her. Pleased, she clamps the handle between her gums and reaches her arms up to Finnick. He tosses his net over his shoulder, hoists Mags on top of it, grips his trident in his free hand, and we run away from the cornucopia. That also is kind of a fun image to imagine is Mags just on Finnick. Just can you imagine all the District 4 victors as well, how upset they'd be over Mags going back in to the arena because she's like all of their mothers, you know? Where the sand ends, woods begin to rise sharply. No, not really woods, at least not the kind I know. Jungle. The fine, almost obsolete word comes to mind, something I heard from another Hunger Games or learned from my father. Most of the trees are unfamiliar, with smooth trunks and few branches. The earth is very black and spongy underfoot, often obscured by tangles of vines with colourful blossoms. While the sun's hot and bright, the air is warm and heavy with moisture, and I get the feeling I will never really be dry here. The thin blue fabric of my jumpsuit lets the seawater evaporate easily, but it's already begun to cling to me with sweat. He takes the lead cutting through the patches of. Hang on, I maybe wanna. This is Candace's knowledge. I was just thinking about whether I should highlight this at the same time. Candace's sheltered knowledge, I guess. Peter takes the lead, cutting through the patches of dense vegetation with his long knife. I make Finnick go second because even though he's the most powerful, he's got his hands full with mags. Besides, while he's a whiz with that trident, it's a weapon less suited to the jungle than my arrows. It doesn't take long between the steep incline and the heat to become short of breath. Peter and I have been training intensely though, and Finnick's such an amazing physical specimen that even with mags over his shoulder, we climb rapidly for about 2 kilometers before he requests a rest. And then I think it's more for Mag's sake than his own. The foliage has hidden the wheel from sight, so I scale a tree with rubbery limbs to get a better view, and then wish I hadn't. Around the cornucopia, the ground appears to be bleeding. The water has purple stains, bodies lie on the ground and float in the sea, but at this distance, with everyone dressed exactly the same, I can't tell who lives or dies. All I can tell is that some of the tiny blue figures still battle. Well, what did I think? That the victor's chain of locked hands at last night would result in some sort of universal truce in the arena. No, I never believed that. But I guess I'd hoped people might show somewhat restraint, reluctance at least, before they jumped right into masker mode. And you all knew each other, I think. You acted like friends. Um, I just noticed the comment that algo gods really blessed me today. Yes, the algorithm really it blessed you with my live stream. Welcome. I have only one real friend in here, and he isn't from District 4. Let the slight soupy breeze cool my cheeks while I come to a decision. Despite the bangle, I should just get it over with and shoot Finnick. There's really no future in this alliance, and he's too dangerous to let go. Now, when we have this tentative trust, may be my only chance to kill him. I can easily shoot him in the back as we walk. It's despicable, of course. But will it be any more despicable if I wait, know him better, or him more? No, this is the time. I take one last look at the battling figures, the bloody ground, to harden my resolve, then slide to the ground. But when I land, I find Finnick kept pace with my thoughts, as if he knows what I have seen and how it will have affected me. He has one of his charms raised in a casually defensive position. The thing is, Hamish totally readied him for this. Hamish had a conversation with Finnick, and he was like, Katniss will try to kill you around every corner, and you need to be prepared. Finnick's like, cool. All right. I see what you mean. I've seen her in the training center. She seems deadly. Right. The fact that she doesn't even consider killing Max, it's just Finnick. Just Finnick that she's prepared to kill. What's going on down there, Katniss? Have they all joined hands, taken a vow of non-violence, tossed the weapons in the sea in defiance of the capital? Finnick asks. No, I say. No, Finnick repeats. Because whatever happened in the past is in the past, and no one in this arena was a victor by chance. His eyes, he eyes Peter for a moment, except maybe Peter. Finnick knows, well, hang on. I think they leave that line out completely, actually, from the movies. I guess luck was in his favor. I would say that Peter could, well, actually, yeah, luck was just, the odds were in his favor. Peter is just as strong, it's just that the odds were not in his favor with his injuries. Finnick knows then what Hamish and I know about Peter being truly deep down better than the rest of us. Finnick took out that tribute from fire without blinking an eye. And how long did I take to turn deadly? I shot to kill when I targeted Navarra and lost in Brutus. Peter would at least have attempted negotiations first, seeing if some wider alliance was possible. Like Amber, actually. But to what end? Finnick's right, I'm right. The people in the arena weren't crowned for their compassion. Like Ampert's Newcomers Alliance. I hold his gaze, weighing his speed against my own. The time it will take to send an arrow through his brain versus the time his trident will reach my body. I can see him waiting for me to make the first move. Calculating if he should block first or go directly for an attack. I can feel we both about worked it out when Peter steps deliberately between us. So how many are dead? He asks. Move, you idiot, I think. But he remains planted firmly between us because he knows you can't just. He can practically read Candace's mind. Hard to say. I answer at least 6, I think, and is still fighting. Let's keep moving. We need water, he says. So far, there's been no sign of fresh water. Hang on. I read that wrong. So far, there's been no sign of a freshwater stream or pond, and the salt water's undrinkable. Again, I think of the last games where I nearly died of dehydration. Better find some savings for Finnick. We need to be undercover when the others come hunting us tonight. Us, hunting. Alright, maybe killing Finnick would be a little premature. He's been helpful so far. He does have Hamish's stamp of approval, and who knows what the night will hold. If worst comes to worst, I can always kill him in his sleep. That is low, Candace. So I let the moment pass, and so does Finnick. The absence of water intensifies my thirst. I keep a sharp eye out as we continue our trek upwards, but with no luck. After about another kilometre, I can see an end to the tree line and assume we're reaching the crest of the hill. Maybe we'll have better luck on the other side. Find a spring or something. But there is no other side. I know this before anyone else, even though I am furthest from the top. My eyes catch on a funny rippling square hanging like a warped pane of glass in the air. At first I think it's the glare from the sun or the heat shimmering up off the ground, but it's fixed in space, not shifting when I move, and then when I connect the square with the virus and beating the training center, I realize what lies before us. My warning cry is just reaching my lips when Peter's knife swings out to slash away some blinds. Were they intending on killing people the whole time with the force field? Did it really get back at Hamish? I don't know. Because why make it so, like, it look like a part of the arena? They hide in the 50th games. They hide the arena behind a big bush full of deadly ladybugs. So at least there's something killing you before you even reach the force field. You know, like capital Mutts. But it's purposely luring people in. There's a sharp zapping sound. For an instant, the trees are gone, and I can see open space over a short stretch of bare earth. Then Peter's flung back from the force field. Wait, what? Oh, so that's like what's behind the arena. Like the force field kind of is like jolted in a way, and it's like revealing what in the real world it is that's not encapsulated by the arena. And Peter's flung back from the force field, bringing Finnick and Max to the ground. In the movies, it's just Max, and she's just completely flung to that poor old woman. Completely just flies across the arena. I rush over to where he lies, motionless in a web of vines. Peter, there's a faint smell of singed hair. I call his name again, giving him a little shake, but he's unresponsive. My fingers fumble across his lips. Sorry, I'm like getting ahead of myself, and I'm thinking of Canis in like doing CPR, or like watching Finnick do CPR. We'll get to that point in a minute. My fingers fumble across his lips where there's no warm breath, although moments ago he was panting. I press my ear against his chest, the spot where I always rest my head, where I know I will hear the strong and steady beat of his heart. Instead, I find silence. The man's. I keep saying he's a man. He's a child. He's a boy. He. In my head, he is grown up, and Candace, they've all grown up with me. What was I going with that? The boy has had his heart stopped so many times. In the last arena, and when they like took him out of the arena, his heart stopped. I just know Peter eventually in his old age dies of a heart attack or something. Something to do with his heart because of all of this trauma on his health. Okay. Chapter 20. I think we have about 21-ish pages left. it's before midnight as well now. That's great, actually. I'm making really good time today. Peter ice cream, shaking him hard, even resort to slapping his face. Look. But it's no use. Look. That is hilarious. Highlighted for emphasis. His heart has failed, and I am slapping emptiness. Peter. Finnick props my eyes against a tree and pushes me out of the way. Let me. His fingers touch points at Peter's neck, run over the bones in his ribs and spine. Then he pinches Peter's nostrils shut. No, I yell, hurling myself at Finnick for surely he intends to make certain that Peter's dead to keep any hope of life from returning him. That's so, this whole scene is just so funny. The whole time, Candace is like, because imagine being Candace and seeing Finnick approach and like double check he's dead, and then all of a sudden, like, he just pinches Peter's nose closed. Like, no, gotta make sure he's like really suffocated, you know? Gotta make sure he's like dead. That's this whole scene is so funny from Katniss's perspective. The movie just does not encapsulate how absolutely hilarious this is. Finnick's hand comes up and hits me so hard, so squarely in the chest that I go flying back into a nearby trunk. I'm stunned for a moment by the pain, by trying to regain my wind as I see Finnick close off Peter's nose again. From where I sit, I pull an arrow, whip the notch into place, and I'm about to let it fly when I'm stopped by the sight of Finnick kissing Peter. Go! That's CPR, Katniss. I know you've never seen it before. Well, actually, maybe she's about to reference her mother. Yeah. Yeah, she's about to reference where she's seen her mother do it. So funny. Kissing Peter? No, girl. I don't think that's what that is. Oh my god, I need to charge my phone. Right in the middle of this high stress, intense scene. Where is my. I usually charge my phone or like stick it on charge before I go live. Today, I didn't do that. I did not think that far ahead because I'm real smart like that. There we go. Should be on charge now, I think. I think we're good. Okay. What were we up to? And it's so bizarre, even for Finnick, that I stay my hand. No, he's not kissing him. He's got Peter's nose blocked off but his mouth tilted open and he's blowing air into his lungs. Kindness. Slow to put the pieces together. It's just because she's used to kissing Peter, so that's the only reason that she thinks that anyone would be near his face. I can see this. I can actually see Peter's chest rising and falling. Then Finnick unzips the top of Peter's jumpsuit and begins to pump the spot over his heart with the heels of his hands. Now that I've got over my shock, I can understand what he's trying to do. Once in a blue moon, I've seen my mother try something similar, but not often. If your heart fails in District 12, it's unlikely your family could get you to my mother in time anyway. So her usual patients are burned or wounded or ill or starving, of course. But Finnick's world is different. Whatever he's doing, he's done it before. Why? Why has he done it before? Is it because people drown in District 4? Actually, that's probably why it is. They're trying to resuscitate someone who's been drowning. Because that's the only reason I can imagine why they'd be doing it, you know? Okay, moving on. There's a very set rhythm and method, and I find the arrow tip sinking to the ground as I lean in to watch, desperately for some sign of success. Agonizing minutes drag past as my hopes diminish. Around the time that I'm deciding it's too late, that Peter's dead to the front, unreachable forever, he gives a small cough and Phoenix sits back. I leave my weapons in the dirt as I fling myself at him. Peter, I say softly. I brush the damp, blonde strands of his back from his forehead. Hang on. I brush the damp, blonde strands of hair back from his forehead, find the pulse drumming against my fingers at his neck. His lashes flutter open, his eyes meet mine. Careful, he says weakly. There's a force field up ahead. No shit, Peter. No shit. I laugh, but there are tears running down my cheeks. Must be a lot stronger than the one on the training center, she says. I'm all right though. Just a little shaken. You were dead. Your heart stopped, I burst out. Before really considering if this is a good idea, I clap my hand over my mouth as I'm starting to make those awful choking sounds that happen when I sob. Or Katniss. Girl, I do the same. I was told recently by my family that when I cry, I wail. So I think that that is very relatable. Well, it seems to be working now, he says. It's all right, Katniss. I know my head, but the sounds aren't stopping Katniss. Now Peter's worried about me, which adds to the insanity of it all. It's okay. It's just her hormones, says Finnick, from the baby. I look up and see him sitting back on his knees, but still panting a bit from the climb and the effort of bringing Peter back from the dead. Not him doing it. Not him reminding Katniss again. And in fact covering for her for being so emotional. No, it's not. I get out, but I'm kind of finding even more circle round of sobbing that seems only to confirm that Phoenix said about the baby. He meets my eyes and I glare at him through my tears. It's stupid, I know, that his efforts make me so vexed. All I wanted was to keep Peter alive, and I couldn't, and Finnick could. And I should be nothing but grateful, and I am. But I'm also furious because it means I will never stop owing Finnick O'Dare, ever. So how can I kill him in his sleep? Well, Katniss, that is one massive quandary, isn't it? Quandary? Is that the word? Is that the right? I'm pretty sure quandary is the right word. That's the right context for it. Oh, oopsies. I expect to see a smug or sarcastic expression on his face, but his look is strangely quizzical. He glances between Peter and me as if trying to figure something out. And he gives his head a slight shake as if to clear it. How are you? He asks Peter. Do you think you can move on? This is him right here figuring out that it's real. No, he has to rest, I say. My nose is running like crazy and I don't even have a shred of fabric to use as a handkerchief. Mags runs. Mags. Wow. I just made up a word there entirely. Mags rips off a handful of hanging moss from a tree limb and gives it to me. I'm too much of a mess to even question it. I blow my nose loudly and mop the tears off my face. It's nice, the moss. Absorbent and surprisingly soft. I notice a gleam of gold on Peter's chest. I reach out and retrieve the disc that hangs from a chain around his neck. My Mockingjay has been engraved on it. Is this your token? I ask. Yes, do you mind that I used your Mockingjay? I wanted us to match, he says. Oh, that is so cute. And that this chapter isn't Max dying, is it? I mean, actually, it might make sense that it is Max dying at the end of this chapter. Guys, I don't want to do that. I do not want to read that. No, of course I don't mind. I force a smile. Peter showing up in the arena wearing a Mockingjay is both a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, it should give a boost to the rebels in the district. On the other, it's hard to imagine President Snow will overlook it. And that makes the job of keeping Peter alive harder. So you want to make camp here then? Phoenix asks. I don't think that's an option, Peter answers, staying here with no water, no protection. I feel alright, really. If we could just go slowly. Slowly would be better than not at all, Finnick helps Peter to his feet while I pull myself together. Since I got up this morning, I watched Cinna beat into a pulp, landed in another arena, and seen Peter die. Still, I'm glad Finnick keeps playing the pregnancy card for me because, from a sponsor's point of view, I'm not handling things all that well. My god, spoilers. I hope not. I'm sorry, guys. I'm coming at this from a perspective of someone who's read the books already. This is a perspective in hindsight. I actually keep referencing Sunrise on the Reaping. So if you haven't read Sunrise on the Reaping and I see any correlations in this book, especially in Catching Fire, since there is a lot of correlations, good luck because this definitely spoils for the whole series. What was I up to? Now I'm lost. I check over my weapons, which I know are in perfect condition, because it makes me seem more in control. I'll take the lead, I announce. He starts to object, but then it cuts him off. No, let her do it, he frowns at me. You knew that force field was there, didn't you? Right at the last second, you started to give a warning, I nod. How did you know? I hesitate. To reveal that I know Beatty and Morris's trick of recognizing a force field could be dangerous. I don't know if the game makers made note of that moment during training when the two pointed it out to me or not. One way or the other, I have a very valuable piece of information, and if they know I have it, they might do something to alter the force field so I can't see uh, the what? The aberration anymore. Aberration? I've got no idea how to pronounce that word. The problem I have with reading this chapter out loud is that like there's so many words that I say in my head that I'm like I've got no clue. And if they know I have it, they might do something to alter the force field so I can't see the aberration anymore. It's just like an alter in just like a change. I was just trying to look up the definition to make sure I understood it. So I lie. I don't know. It's almost as if I could hear it. Listen. All becomes still. There's the sound of insects, birds, and the breeze in the foliage. The way she lies so easy. Candace. No wonder she survived the games. I don't hear anything, says Peter. Yes, I insist. It's like when the fence around District 12 is on, only much, much quieter. Everyone listens again intently. I do too, although there's nothing to hear. There, I said, can you hear it? It's coming from right where Peter got shocked. Not Candace. Candace just playing the games. The game maker's back. I don't hear it either, says Finnick. But if you do, by all means, take the lead. I decided to play this for all it's worth. That's weird, I say. I turn my head from side to side as if puzzled. I can only hear it out of my left ear. The one the doctors reconstructed, asked Peter. Just gonna write a little annotation here. I keep knocking my goddamn camera. It's fine. Yeah, I say, then give a shrug. Maybe they did a better job than they thought. You know, sometimes I do hear funny things on that side, things you wouldn't ordinarily think have a sound. Like insect wings or snow hitting the ground. Perfect. Now all the attention will turn to the surgeons who fixed my deaf ear after the games last year, and they'll have to explain why I can hear like a bat. I love Candace. As Caesar Flickerman says, the girl on fire is so cheeky. Hamish is laughing at that too. You, says Mags, nudging me forward so I take the lead. Since we're to be moving slowly, Mags prefers to walk with the aid of a branch Finnick quickly fashions into a cane for her. He makes a staff for Peter as well, which is good because despite his protestations, like protests, literally, it's just, that's what it means. I just can't say it out loud. I think all Peter really wants to do is lie down. Finnick brings up the rear so at least someone alert has our backs. I walk with the force field on my left because that's supposed to be the side with my superhuman hair. But since that's all made up, I cut down a bunch of hard nuts that hang like ropes from a nearby tree and toss them ahead of Mexico. It's good I do too, because I have a feeling I'm missing the patches that indicate the force field more often than I'm spotting them. Whenever a nut hits the force field, there's a puff of smoke before the nut lands blackened with a crab shell on the ground at my feet. After a few minutes, I become aware of a smacking sound behind me and turn to see Max peeling the shell off the nuts and popping in her ready for mouth. Mags, I cry, spit that out. It can be poisonous. I don't think Max cares. She's had a long life. Spoilers, she's about to die as well. Okay. Also, I'm highlighting everything to do with food. Because it's the Hunger Games. It has multiple meanings, so I'm highlighting this paragraph. She mumbles something and ignores me, licking her lips with apparent relish. I look to Finnick for help, but he just laughs. I guess we'll find out, he says. I move forward, wondering about Finnick, who saved old Mags, but will let her eat strange nuts. Who Hamish has stamped with a seal of approval, who brought Peter back from the dead. Why didn't he just let him die? He would have been blameless. I never would have guessed it was in his power to revive him. Why would he possibly have wanted to save Peter? And why was he so determined to team up with me, willing to kill me too if it comes to that, but leaving the choice of it if we fight to me? I wonder what's going on, Katniss. I keep walking, tossing my nuts, sometimes catching a glimpse of the force field, trying to press the left to find a spot where we can break through to get away from the cornucopia and hopefully find water. But after another hour or so of this, I realize it's futile. We're not making any progress to the left. In fact, the force field seems to be hurting us along a curved path. I stop and look back at Mag's limping form, the sheen of sweat on Peter's face. Let's take a break, I say. I need to get another look from above. I keep missing the comments. What meanings I can think of too? Meanings as in like the Hunger Games meanings. It's really late. I'm gonna have to think of it. I'm gonna have to think hard because as we've been annotating it, I always come up with like different meanings of hunger. So hunger, as in the Hunger Games, it means poverty. It means hunger. There's so many times where food is mentioned. It's like in the very first novel, and honestly earlier in this novel as well. It's not as much now since they're in like the arena. But every other page or every couple pages, it's food, find food, because that's the survival tactic. That's the first thing that's on Katniss's mind. You have to find food immediately. You have to find water immediately. All of that. It's preventing her from starving to death. Obviously, um, it like I said, it represents poverty in the districts and the differences between class division in capital versus the districts. The capital has an overabundance of food. And they're hoarding wealth. So the food is representative of them hoarding wealth, not just, and they're holding wealth in multiple different ways, but it's represented through the food and the Hunger Games themselves. And the Hunger Games, they call the Hunger Games because of the capital hoarding wealth. So it has like that general meaning of just food. So like the two meanings of like it means the Hunger Games, and then it means poverty and food and like hunger in survival, or like trying to prevent starving to death. And then if you take those two meanings, you kind of can like you take the two meanings and then you can kind of like create more meanings from all of that. Oh yeah, like the puking in the party scene. Yeah. Yeah, like that. At the beginning of the Catching Fire book, yeah, during it's at the end of the victory tour, so they go through all the districts. And then what they do is end in the capital with all that massive feast. So there's multiple times, when I say there's multiple meanings, it's because it's brought up multiple times where you can analyze it in a different way because it represents the bigger meaning of the Hunger Games. But words, it it's means different parts of wealth and poverty, essentially. So you can analyze it in like really different, interesting ways depending on where you are at in the novels. So like I'm highlighting multiple places about food and things because of that. Because you can like emphasize certain quotes about food and what it means pertaining to that character. There's one point in the very first Hunger Games novel where, and Katniss refers to it again, in I think Catching Fire, where Rue says, "Oh, a whole is this whole leg for me?" So like they're eating some sort of bird in the Hunger Games arena, and they're like, and Katniss says, "Here, have the rest of this," and she's like, "Oh, all for me." So that represents how much Rue has had to eat in the past, how and her own personal experience with hunger and food. So you can connect it to different things, which I find really interesting. So yeah, when I say multiple meanings, that's kind of what I mean. It represents so many different things in the novel. I mean, it can tell you just all about the characterization of each of Suzanne Collins' characters. All right, moving on. Where was I up to? I I keep walking, tossing my nuts, sometimes catching a glimpse of the force field, trying to press the left to find a spot where we can break through and get away from the cornucopia and hopefully find water. But after another hour or so of this, I realize it's futile. We're not making any progress to the left. In fact, the force field seems to be hurting us along a curved path. I stop and look at Mags limping from the sheen, limping form, the sheen of sweat on Peter's face. Let's take a break, I say, and I need to get another look from above. The tree I chose seems to jut higher into the air than the others. I make my way to the twisting boughs, staying as close to the trunk as possible. No telling how easily these rubbery branches will snap. Still, I climb beyond good sense because there's something I have to see. As I cling to a stretch of the trunk no wider than a sapling, swaying back and forth in the humid breeze, my suspicions are confirmed. There's a reason we can't turn left. It will never be able to. From this precarious vantage point, I can see the shape of the whole arena for the first time. A perfect circle, with a perfect wheel in the middle. The sky above the circumference of the jungle is tinged a uniform pink, which is such an amazing sight. I think I can make out one or two of those wavy squares, chinks in the armor. Lars and Beatty called them because they reveal what was meant to be hidden and therefore a weakness. Just to make absolutely sure I shoot an arrow into the empty space above the tree line. I wanted to point this one out because as we started to read this part, I wanted to point it. I thought of the fact that she does this. There's a spurt of light, a flash of real blue sky, and the arrows thrown back into the jungle. I climb down to give the others the bad news. This is foreshadowing what Katniss is going to do later. I just thought of this because Susan Collins is essentially showing us that it's possible for Katniss to throw an arrow into the force field. So she's suspending our disbelief in a way that it's essentially saying this is logically possible in this world we're in. Maybe in the real world it wouldn't happen like that, but in this world it's possible. So she's making sure the rules of the Hunger Games world work in our brains. The force field has us trapped in a circle, a dome. Really, I don't know how high it goes. There's the cornucopia, the sea, then the jungle all around. Very exact, very symmetrical, and not very large, I say. Did you see any water last Finnick? Only the salt water where we started the games, I say. There must be some other sources, Peter, frowning, or we'll all be dead in a matter of days. Well, the foliage is thick. Maybe there are ponds or springs somewhere, I said doubtfully. I instinctively feel the capital might want these unpopular games over as soon as possible. Plutarch Heavens we might have already been given orders to knock us off. At any rate, there's no point in trying to find out what's over the edge of this hill because the answer is nothing. There must be drinkable water between the force field and the wheel, Peter insists. We all know what this means, heading back to the careers and the bloodshed with Max hardly able to walk and Peter too weak to fight. We decide to move down the slope a few hundred meters and continue circling, see if maybe there's some water at that level. I stay in the lead, occasionally chucking a nut to my left, but we're well out of range of the force field now. The sun beats down on us, turning the air to steam, playing tricks on our eyes. By mid-afternoon, it's clear Peter and Maddox can't go on. Finnick chooses a campsite about 10 meters below the force field, saying we can use it as a weapon by deflecting our enemies into it if attacked. Then he and Max pull blades of the sharp grass that grows into 2-meter high tufts and begin to weave them together into Max. Since Max seems to have no ill effect from the nuts, Peter collects bunches of them and fries them by bouncing them off the force field. He methodically peels off the shells, piling the meats on a leaf. I stand guard, fidgety and hot, and raw with the emotions of the day. Thirsty. I am so thirsty. Finally, I can't stand it anymore. Finnick, why don't you stand guard and I'll hunt around some more for water, I say. No one's thrilled with the idea of me going off alone, but the threat of dehydration hangs over us. Don't worry, I won't go far, I promise, Peter. I'll go too, he says. No, I'm going to do some hunting if I can. I tell him, I don't add. And if you can't come because you're too loud, but it's implied. He would both scare off prey and endanger me with his heavy tread. I won't be long. I move stealthily through the trees, happy to find that the ground lends itself to soundless footsteps. I work my way down a diagonal, but I find nothing except more lush green plant life. The sound of the cannon brings me to a halt. The initial bloodbath at the cornucopia must be over. The death toll of the tributes is now available. I count the shots, each representing one dead victor. 8. Not as many as last year, but seems more since I know most of their names. Didn't get to know any of them last year. I guess she got to know a couple of people. Suddenly weak, I lay against a tree to rest, feeling the heat draw the moisture from my body like a sponge. Already, swallowing is difficult and fatigue is creeping up on me. I try rubbing my hand across my belly, hoping some sympathetic pregnant women will become my sponsor, and Hamish can send in some water. No luck. I sink to the ground. Oh, I find that funny. Knocked me camera again. Oops. I write a little note, Hamish wants to figure out where the water comes from first. Or at least find clues. Because otherwise, what use does she have for his mechanism to get water? What is it, like a tree tap? I think that's what it is that he sends through. In my stillness, I begin to notice the animals, strange birds with brilliant plumage, tree lizards with flickering blue tongues, and something that looks like a cross between a rat and a possum clings on the branches close to the trunk. I shoot one of the latter out of the tree to get a closer look. It's ugly, right? A big rodent with a fuzz of mottled grey fur and two wicked-looking gnawing teeth protruding over its lower lip. As I'm gutting and skinning it, I notice something else. Its muzzle is wet, like an animal that's been drinking from a stream. Excited, I started its home tree and moved slowly in a spiral. It can't be that far. The creature's water source. Nothing. I find nothing. Not so much as a dewdrop. Eventually, because I know Peter will be worried about me, I head back to the camp, harder and more frustrated than ever. When I arrive, I see that others have transformed the place. Mags and Finnick have created a hut of sorts out of the grass mats. Open on one side, but with three walls, a floor, and a roof. Max has also platted several bowls that Peter has filled with roasted nuts. Once again, this is food. If oh, please. Their faces turn to me hopefully when I give my head a shake. No, no water. It's out there though. He knew where it was, I say, hoisting the skinned rodent up for all to see. He'd been drinking recently when I shot him out of the tree, but I couldn't find a source. I swear I covered every centimeter of ground in a 30-meter radius. Can we eat him? Pete asks. I don't know for sure, but his meat doesn't look that different from a squirrel's. He ought to be cooked. I hesitate. Just my little nudge. Don't traumatize Hamish like that. I hesitate as I think of trying to start a fire out here from complete scratch. Even if I succeed, there's the smoke to think about. We're all so close together in this arena, there's no chance of hiding it. Peter has another idea. He takes a cube of rodent meat, skewers it on the tip of a pointed stick, and lets it fall into the force field. There's a sharp sizzle, and the stick flies back. The chunk of meat is blackened on the outside, but well cooked inside. We give him a round of applause and quickly start remembering where we are. You're being a little too loud, my guy. A white sun sinks in the rosy sky as we gather in the hut. I'm still leery about the nuts, but Phoenix says Max recognized them from another games. I didn't bother spending time at the edible plant station in training because it was so effortless for me last year. Now I wish I had. For surely there would have been some of the unfamiliar plants surrounding me, and I might have guessed a bit more about where I was headed. Max seems fine though, and she's been eating the nuts for hours. So I pick one up and take a small bite. It's a mild, slightly sweet flavor that reminds me of a chestnut. I decide it's alright. The rodent's strong and gamey, but surprisingly juicy. Really, it's not a bad meal for our first night in the arena. If only we had something to wash it down with. There's too many pages left in this book, in this chapter. Jesus Christ. Oh, Max doesn't die in this chapter. She dies next chapter. Got it wrong. I wanted to highlight a little bit of this section to just be like the odds really were in Candace's favor in the 74 Hunger Games, because the edible plants section like revealed what kind of edible plants would be in the arena. As we know from Sunrise on the Reaping, also the training center reveals clues about where you're going. Hamish likely told Katniss like off screen, you know, like where the reader wasn't exactly told that the training center often reveals something about the arena. Since he was told by Maddox and Wirus, that's what happens. It was effortless because it was revealing the arena. Everything was built for her. Finnick asked a lot of questions about the rodent, which we decided to call a tree rat. How high was it? How long did I watch it before I shot it? What was it doing? I don't remember it doing much of anything, snuffling around for insects or something. I'm dreading the night. At least the tightly woven grass offers some protection from whatever slips across the jungle floor after hours. But a short time before the sun slips below the horizon, a pale white moon rises, making things just visible enough. Our conversation trails off because we know what's coming. We position ourselves in a light at the mouth of the hut, and Peter slips his hand into mine. Just gonna highlight that for emphasis because it's cute. Support. I think that's what I'm gonna write. I'm just gonna write support because, or being supportive. For support, that's what I want. The sky brightens when the seal of the capital appears as if floating in space. As I listen to the strains of the anthem, I think it will be hard for Finnick and Max, but it turns out to be plenty hard for me as well. seeing the faces of the 8 dead victors projected into the sky. The man from District 5, the one Finnick took out with his trident, is the first to appear. That means all the tributes in 1 through 4 are alive. The 4 careers, BWD and Virus, and of course Max and Finnick. The man from District 5 is followed by the male morphling from 6. Cecilia and Wolf from 8. Oh, not Cecilia's kids. Both from 9. The woman from 10. And Cedar from 11. The capital seal is back with a final bit of music, and then the sky goes dark, except for the moon. No one speaks. I can't pretend I knew any of them well, but I'm thinking of those 3 kids hanging on to Cecilia when they took her away. Cedar's kindness to me and our meeting. Even the thought of the glazed-eyed morphling painting my cheeks with yellow flowers giving me a pang. All dead. All gone. I'm constantly kicking my goddamn camera. I'm so sorry. I think I've honestly just kicked it closer to my desk. You know what this is gonna have to do? I don't know how long we might have sat here if it weren't for the arrival of the silver parachute, which glides down through the foliage to land before us. No one reaches for it. Whose is it, do you think? I say, finally. No telling, says Finnick. Why won't we let Peter claim it since he died today? Fair, Finnick, fair. Okay, this ring light is like in my way as I'm trying to like read now. That's a little bit better. Peter unties the cord and flattens out the circle of silk. On the parachute sits a small metal object that I can't place. What is it, I ask. No one knows. We pass it from hand to hand, taking turns examining it. It's a hollow metal tube, tapered slightly at one end. On the other end, a small lip curves downwards. It's vaguely familiar. A part that could have fallen off a bicycle, a corner of anything, really. Peter blows on one end to see if it makes a sound. It doesn't. Finnick slides his pinky into it, testing it out as a weapon. Useless. Can you fish with it, Mags? I ask. Mags, who can fish with almost anything, shakes her head and grunts. I take it and roll it back and forth on my palm. Since we're allies, Hamish will be working with the District 4 mentors. He had a hand in choosing this gift. That means it's valuable, life-saving, even. I think back to last year, when I wanted water so badly, but he wouldn't send it because he knew I would find it I could find it if I tried. Hamish's gifts, or lack thereof, carry weighty messages. I can almost hear him growling at me. Use your brain if you have one. What is it? wipe the sweat from my eyes and hold the gift out in the moonlight. I move it this way and that, viewing it from different angles, covering portions and then revealing them, trying to make it divulge its purpose to me. Finally, in frustration, I jam one end into the dirt. I give up. Maybe if we hook up with Beatty or Virus, they can figure it out. I stretch out, pressing my hot cheek on the grass mat, staring at the thing in aggravation. Peter rubs a tense spot between my shoulders, and I let myself relax a little. I wonder why this place hasn't cooled off at all now that the sun's cool. I wonder what's going on back home. Prim, my mother, Gail, Madge. I get Madge is suddenly involved in this as well. I think of them watching me from home. Even though we don't actually see Madge again since leaving District 12 because she gets killed in the District 12 bombings. At least I hope they're at home, not taken into custody by threat, being punished as Senna is. As Darius is, punished because of me. Everybody. I begin to ache for them, for my district, for my woods. Decent woods with sturdy hardwood trees, plentiful food, game that isn't creepy, rushing streams, cool breezes, cold winds to blow the stifling heat away. I conjure up such a wind in my mind, letting it all freeze my cheeks and numb my fingers. At once, the piece of metal half buried in the black earth has a name. A spile, I exclaim, saying, bolts upright. What? Asked Finnick. I wrestle the thing from the ground and brush it clean, cut my hand around the tapered end, concealing it, and looking at the lip. Yes, I've seen one of these before on a cold, windy day long ago when I was out of the woods with my father, inserted snugly into a hole drilled in the inside of a maple, a pathway for the sap to follow as it flowed into a bucket. Maple syrup could make even our dull bread a treat. After my father died, I didn't know what happened to the handful of spiles he had, hidden out in the woods somewhere, probably, never to be found. That's really sad. I hope she got her hands on one after the rebellion. It's a spile, sort of like a tap. You put it in a tree and sap comes out. And look at the sinewy green trunks. Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. Around me. Well, the right sort of tree. Sap, arsenic, they don't have the right kind of tree what I see either. Highlighting, because that is District 4 law. To make syrup, says Peter, but there must be something else inside these trees. We're all on our feet at once, our thirst, the lack of springs, the tree rat's sharp front teeth and wet muzzle. There can only be one thing worth having inside these trees. Finnick goes to hammer the spile into the green bark of a massive tree with a rock, but I stop him. Wait, you might damage it. You need to drill a hole first, I say. I think we're almost done with this chapter. Yeah. There's nothing to drill with, so Mags offers her all. Nina drives it straight into the bark, burying the spike 5 minutes. This is 5 centimeters deep. He and Finnick take turns opening up the hole with the awl and the knives until it can hold the spile. I wedge it in carefully and we all stand back in anticipation. At first, nothing happens, then a drop of water rolls down the lip and lands in Max's palm. She lifts it off and holds out her hand for more. By wiggling and adjusting the spile, we get a thin stream running out. We take turns holding our mouths under the tap, wetting our parched tongues. Mags brings over a basket, and the grass is so tightly woven it holds water. We fill the basket and pass it around, taking deep gulps and later luxuriously splashing our faces clean. Like everything here, the water's on the warm side, but it's no time to be picky. Without our thirst to distract us, we're all aware of how exhausted we are and make preparations for the night. Last year, I always tried to have my gear ready in case I had to make a speedy retreat in the night. This year, there's no backpack to prepare, just my weapons, which won't leave my grasp anyway. Then think of the spile and wrest it from the tree trunk. I strip a tough vine of its leaves, thread it through the hollow center, and tie the spile securely to my belt. Finnick offers to take the first watch, and I let him, knowing it has to be one of the two of us until Peter's rested up. I lie down beside Peter on the floor of the huts, telling Finnick to wake me when he's tired. I think they changed that from the movies. Katniss takes the first watch. Instead, I find myself jarred from sleep a few hours later by what seems to be the tolling of a bell. I don't want to say that out loud. It's gonna be weird. It's not exactly like the one they ring in the Justice Building on New Year's Eve, but close enough for me to recognize it. Peter and Meg sleep through it, but Finnick has the same look of attentiveness I feel. The tolling stops. I count 12, he says. I know, 12. What does that signify? One ring for each district, maybe. But why? Mean anything, do you think? No idea, he says. It's like a clock. It's a clock. No idea, he says. We wait for further instructions, maybe a message from Claudius Templesmith, an invitation to a feast. The only thing of note appears in the distance. A dazzling bolt of electricity strikes a towering tree, and then a lightning storm begins. I guess it's an indication of rain, of a water source for those who don't have mentors as smart as Haymitch. Wow. What a compliment for Haymitch from Katniss. Okay, almost done with the chapter. Go to sleep, Finnick. It's my turn to watch anyway, I say. Finnick hesitates, but no one can stay awake forever. He settles down at the mouth of the hut, one hand gripped around the trident, and drifts into a restless sleep. I sit with my bow loaded, watching the jungle, which is ghostly pale and green in the moonlight. After an hour or so, the lightning stops. I can hear the rain coming in, though, pattering on the leaves a few hundred meters away. I keep waiting for it to reach us, but it never does. I like this imagery. Why do I prefer a pencil over a highlighter? Well, I don't. I that the thing is, my highlighter ran out 2 weeks ago, maybe just over a week ago, and I have yet to replace the highlighter. And I've gotten to a point where I've forgotten so many times now to get highlighter that I'm like, I may as well just highlight the rest of the book with a pencil. And at this point as well, I was like debating it because I don't know if I want to get like another pencil. I'm using different colored highlighters depending on the books. Orange slash like a red for catching fire. And I used yellow for the first books. And then I'm gonna use blue for the Mockingjay novels, so on and so forth. So at this point, there's no point if I'm just gonna use a blue highlighter to get like another orange highlighter if that's all I'm gonna use it for, like for a couple chapters. But also the pencil doesn't bleed through. So if you don't mind coloring in when instead of highlighting, then it's beneficial because like you're you don't have bleed through when it comes to a pencil. That's kind of like the pros of using a pencil. Someone suggested it on a stream when I was like, my highlighter ran out. I'm like, I thought I had another highlighter. I don't. Someone was like, you could use a pencil. I'm like, I guess I could do that. So shout out to that person who told me to use a pencil instead of a highlighter. Because now I'm accidentally stuck with using a pencil for the rest of this novel. Okay, moving on. The sound of the cannon startles me, although it makes little impression on my sleeping companions. There's no point in awakening them for this. Another victor's dead. I don't even allow myself to wonder who it is. The rain coming in here is the blood rain. The cannon, there is, I don't remember his name, but Joanna's district partner, he dies in the blood rain. And the next part of the clock comes in, which is the fog, the deadly fog. The elusive rain shuts off suddenly, like the storm did last year in the arena. Moments after it stops, I see the fog sliding softly in the direction of the recent downpour. I'm just going to mention Joanna's district partner. Blood Rain and Joanna's district partner. I don't remember his name. Joanna says it in a chapter or two, I think, when she appears and tells the story of what happened to them. Another comment, no one here has a great life, but Joanna always got the shorter end of the stick. Yeah, I know. Joanna always got like that. She Look, I feel like a lot of them got the shorter end of the stick in like a lot of ways. I think the one that like matters the most when it comes to Joanna, like when her in terms of her getting the shorter end of the stick, is that she doesn't get the happy ending that the living victors end up having. We don't really know what happens to Joanna. Annie has her son. Yes, she's lost Finnick. Yes, Finnick's dead. He doesn't get to live the life with Annie. But Annie still has this life in District 4. She still has her son to remind her of Finnick. Hamish has his family, Peter and Katniss. They have each other. And then, I don't know, I guess Beatty does whatever the hell he does, recovers from losing his family and winning a war, vindicating, or getting revenge for against the people who killed his family. How do the victors live? Like, no one else. There's Anabaria. I don't really care about Anabaria. But Joanna, like, she was so important to the narrative and so important to, in the books as well, in Mockingjay, to Katniss's character development, that I feel like we should have gotten a better ending for Joanna. At least a hint of it, because I can't recall anything that Susan Collins tells us about Joanna at the end of Mockingjay, because Joanna and Katniss are roommates in Mockingjay when they're training to go to the capital. And then we just don't hear about Joanna really again. After the vote for the capital Hunger Games, we don't see her again. So really, she didn't get her happy ending. She didn't get any sort of ending, really. She's just there. She didn't get any like light at the end of the tunnel. Even though Finnick dies, like he has his wedding with Annie. He got to experience his love for Annie despite all of his life. Hamish got to experience his love for his mother, his brother, Little Dove, Katniss and Peter, all of that. Or Joanna. Oh, I totally get it when people say they want a Joanna book. Totally get it. Okay, let's finish this chapter. The elusive rain shuts off suddenly, like the storm did last year in the arena. Moments after it stops, I see the fog sliding softly in from the direction of the recent downpour. Just a reaction. Cool rain on the steaming ground, I think. It continues to approach at a steady pace. Tendrils reach forward and then curl like fingers, as if they are pulling the rest behind them. As I watch, I feel the hairs on my neck begin to rise. Something's wrong with this fog. The progression of the front line is too uniform to be natural. And if it's not natural, Candace can always figure out when something isn't natural. A sickeningly sweet odor begins to invade my nostrils, and I reach for others, shouting for them to wake up. In the few seconds it takes to rouse them, I begin to blister. Oh no. Uh-oh. This reminds me of this line right here reminds me of the smell she describes with snow almost. The rose scent, rose scent mixed with the smell of blood. Okay. When I read this the first time, it made me think that the rain was acid rain and the fog was the aftermath, maybe. You know what? I cannot. It was such a long time ago that I read this novel for the first time. It was like 12 years ago, I think. I was like 10 years old when I read it for the first time. And oh, 10 years? Yeah, did I say 10? It's so late. I forget what I was saying. When I was 10 years old, I was reading it, so I couldn't tell you what I thought it was, but I totally get where you're coming from. It definitely makes sense that it could be possibly like acid rain and then like the fog from that, because the fog is also poisonous from the acid rain. In the same way that Katniss says cool rain on the steaming ground, like that makes sense there, because that's almost maybe where Susan Collins even got the idea from. As she was writing that, she's like, well, that could make sense. Yeah, I can totally see that idea. Right. Chapter 21, and we're not doing chapter 21 today, guys, because it's very late for me. It is almost, no, it is like 4 minutes to 1 a.m. I'm not, I cannot stay up that late. Okay. How many pages? So it'll be next Tuesday. I'm thinking about doing more streams, but I don't know. I don't know yet. 92, wow. That's actually quite long. Okay, watch me be really bad at math in real time. 68, 78, 88, 34 pages. Oh no, make sure to get a good 8 hours, yeah. Yeah, I need to go and get some sleep. But yeah, thank you so much for joining the stream, and thank you for everyone who's commenting. There was some people earlier who was commenting, but I've been mostly having a conversation with, I don't know how to say your username. Kara, I think it is Kara. Thank you so much for having a little conversation with me in the comments. Super super fun. Love when I get to interact with my followers and my viewers. Super fun. Because that's the point of this whole like live stream, is that I get to show my ideas live and you guys are having a bit of a conversation back. So that's pretty fun. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and if you're watching after the live stream, thanks for watching. I stream every Tuesday and Thursday at 10:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I am often a little bit late. But that's fine. You'll see it come up on my channel, and you'll be notified if you have notifications on when I do go live. I usually schedule the stream maybe an hour in advance when I am going to go live. So if you guys are interested in my live streams in the future, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, and tune in Australian Eastern Standard Time at 10:30 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Next Tuesday, we're going to be doing chapters 21 and 22. If I can be bothered, maybe an extra chapter. It depends on how people are feeling, how I'm feeling that day. Who knows? But yeah, once again, thank you guys so much for watching. And I will see you guys in the next stream. Bye.